dances around directly answering a question. No co-host tonight, running it solo, which some people like. They say I'm a little more focused, which is kind of hard to believe. You know, we dissected the whole show. We talked about how I could make it better, and I refused. They're shaped like action figure hands that are supposed to hold on to things. Mine hold on to grips and beers, as you'll notice. It's magical. Mark, that's insider information. I never give away my fishing spots, even though I don't fish.
Live from Pahrump, Nevada, the Valley of the Dirt People, it's Tech Talk Taco Tuesday with your host, Jimmy Lewis.
Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, show number 218. I think some things are working. I'm not really sure because I have a lots of red going on the screen, which is so typical of what we have going on here. But anyways, I'll try to find out whether we have sound and some other things. I shut down a lot of stuff in my browser so that we wouldn't have these kinds of issues. But this is normal on this show. It's a live show. We come to you live every Tuesday night. That's why we call it Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, for instance, even though we have done it on Wednesday. And I almost did it last night on Monday just because I thought I was ready, but I'm not, as you can see by what we have going on here. Studio, no co-host tonight, running it solo, which some people like. They say I'm a little more focused, which is kind of hard to believe because a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of buttons to push. A lot of things to see. I know that when I'm doing this, we have the chat running, and the chat usually tells me what's going on. And I guess we have audio, which is really awesome. So we'll see how this goes. The sponsors of our show, as usual, as always. Oh, they're still current. Yamaha, Taco Moto. Tonight we will, I'm going to lose half the viewers right now because we will not be having Rooster Endo because you did not send me Rooster Endo submissions. I think I got one. And since Mark Daniels here, tonight I'm going to have Ragosa because it's what's in front of my hand. I have an email about how this show doesn't get to the point and maybe I do a little too much drinking. We'll get to that later. It's important to answer all of the questions, even if they are just ideas on how to make this good. And Countershock says, it looks like you and sounds good. Countershock's in the house, the makers of an inertial damping device that I find very satisfying on the motorcycles I've tested on. I would love to get it on my Tenere, but it involves cutting and hacking into my fork guards and or fairing, and I haven't done that yet. So, but anyways, other sponsors, Scott Sports. Check out these goggles. Nice. I like the day glow is in. I saw Cooper Webb wearing that in the Supercross last weekend. Climb, of course. I'm wearing some Climb casuals. Actually, I didn't even turn the heater on inside of the office today because I wanted to be nice and cozy. I don't even want to take this thing off. Actually, the heater's down in my house because I just like wearing my awesome Climb flannel. DDC, I'm going to do something to let you know if you won the sprocket. If you are wondering if you won the sprocket, or if you're in the chat and you have sent in a message about the sprocket, you may be the sprocket winner because I'm going to start. I have the list of the names, and I'm just going to go and read off the names. And if you are one of those people and you pipe up in the chat, you win. And Mike Pearson said he did send a quad pic tonight. Yeah, I put a picture of the quad up in the thing to stir some interest because everybody's telling me how to do things, and I just do things my way. It's my show. It's live, and I can do it however I want. I wasn't going to do this show because I actually thought that I was going to be someplace else tonight. Long story, not going to get into it. Of course, there's Trail Tech. Man, I was running Trail Tech Voyagers in Baja that's where I was last week, by the way. I was in Baja, I believe. I don't know the exact title, but we'll just call me the Moto Jefe of the Nora Mexican 1000. So that is going to be You know what? The thing that I'm most pissed off about is that I can't race the race. I'll get to ride it. I'll probably ride the course a few times, but I got turned loose on where I could allow the course to go. And so I was down in Baja last week, and I'll spend another week, probably week and a half down there doing the lower half of the course. And man, that is going to be some fun, awesome. It's like what I remember Baja being when I first went down there and was able to just ride on 2-track roads that you can't go off the side because the cactus will touch you, and there's little 6-inch berms from the ranchers and just the locals kind of cruising through there. Oh man, we found some neat roads and sand washes like you couldn't believe, and all this stuff. So enough about that. There'll be more announcements about that later on other places. Fasst Company, but back to the Trail Tech Voyager Pros. That's how I record all my track logs. I don't need them to see where to go, but that's how I recorded my track logs. And then we were able to use buddy tracking, which when it wasn't that dusty because we had some rain, but like when it was dusty, I don't have to wait in the turns. I just go and I leave a track log for my buddy Mike Shirley, Rally Navigator Mike Shirley. Shout out to the Rally Navigators. Because the Nora Mexico 1000 is a navigation rally. It's a 100% road book navigation rally. So yeah, we were using the Trail Tech Voyager, and I was running Fasst Company Flex handlebars, and my wrists, after 4 days, barely hurt. They just hurt anyways. I only had to take ibuprofen after the fourth day. It was the only time I had to put vitamin I in my system for my wrists, and that was just because I was going to go drive for a long time after that. Of course, Bulletproof Designs, makers of awesome protection products for your dirt bikes. Whether you are riding a KTM, a Gas, or a Husky, they have all that stuff. They have stuff for Yamahas. They have stuff for Hondas, radiator guards that are super stout, really good stuff. And, of course, Double Take Mirrors, who I still owe a video, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get it done, but I am going to learn how to use, I think I'm going to have GTP do the rest of my work for me. In fact, I was thinking about just having Chat GTP screen this whole. I'm gonna just record me talking, and since the time sync between my lips, by the way, is it on? How's the sync tonight? Because I spent a lot of time working on things in this show, and one of them was that there was a big time sync issue that I can kind of fix in the post production, but it's a pain in the ass. But in the show, I know there's a little bit of a lag. And the video quality might be crap because I'm seeing some red things. But anyways, that's the news of the show. Those are the sponsors. Again, thanks to Yamaha, Moto, Scott Sports, DDC, Climb, Trail Tech, Fasst Company, Bulletproof Designs, and Double Take Mirrors. Of course, you can always support Dirt Bike Test by clicking through our links on the website that take you either to Amazon or Rocky Mountain. We get a little chunk of that. It helps us out ever so slightly. And somebody's telling me not to quit my day job, whatever my day job is. What is my day job? So, okay. Looking through the chats, and I'm seeing Dan Parker. I'm going to get right to these questions. Do you have any experience with Molecule Motorsports Enduro Flag handguards? The answer is no. They are slightly thicker than the XS brand. No, I've seen them on a few bikes. I don't have any personal experience, so I can't really comment on it. Sorry about that, Dan. Generally, I like to try stuff before I talk about it. Baja must have been awesome last week. It was. Has anyone seen the AJP PR7 Gold Edition? And it looks hella sweet. It says, get some. We have an AJP that I was supposed to pick up. No, I think I'm picking it up on Friday. It's in California waiting for me. So, and no, George did not want to sit in with me. He decided he wanted to leave before I made things worse, which is completely normal. So, I mean, I could have a co-host. I could just put me in the, whoa, hold on a second here. I could put me over in the co-host seat. That is the worst thing that you have to see all night, I'm sure. I just put my face up on the thing, but I'll show you one other thing that you should know. And this is the Tech Talk Taco t-shirts are currently being printed. There was a little supply problem with some of the t-shirt sizes. That's all being handled. I should have them on Friday, and I promise that I will send them out. I'll start sending them out on early next week, maybe even before the next show, so I can just wash my hands of this whole merch stuff. I don't think I have any extras. I might have some extras coming. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And yes, I know that if it's freezing, just turn the picture off and listen to the audio, because there's really nothing to good look at except for that hot Tech Talk Taco Tuesday t-shirt. Okay. Lag in audio, some bad video, but not too bad. Thanks, Chris. Chris Real had a question when he saw the picture of the quad, and his question was, why are tire pressures important on an ATV? And I thought the real answer was because if you have varying tire pressures, it could cause the ATV to actually turn, because they run low pressure to begin with. And so if you have like lower, and especially on an all-wheel drive one, it can cause it to pull or turn. But someone smarter than me answered that question in the post, and they said you don't want the tire pressures too high, because then when you ride, all your beer bounces out of your cooler and or milk crate that you're carrying it around in. So just so you know, that's what happens. And let's see. Timothy Whitehouse says, going to be 50 next year, and I was thinking about doing the 1,000 next year on my FE 450, or do you think I should grab a 501? Timothy, either of those bikes would be excellent. Don't really think, once you're on a bigger bike, I mean, like I know people that were racing KTM 350s down in Baja, which kind of surprised me. But I can see on the score courses where the trophy trucks and stuff run that are so beat up, I could actually see why maybe you would want a lighter bike, because they're just so beat up. But I promise you, my course will have the minimum amount of hoop-de-doos. In fact, I'm just going to tell you straight up, I have a whole bunch of stuff around San Felipe and not one hoop-de-doo. Zero. Mark my words. Okay. So Anthony Z says, how much difference in traction is there from the counterbalance KTM 300s compared to the TPIs? Difference in traction. So the KTM 300s have been counterbalanced for quite a while now. A few years before they went to TPI. So I'm going to say around 2017, I think they went to that new smaller motor. And the smaller motor, actually, the cases, that's when they started counterbalancing them. And I don't know that there's a big difference in traction. Because I think that when they did that, they lightened up enough stuff. The motor actually became a little bit more peppy. And is the very first time I rode a counterbalance bike was when they did the SX launch. So they presented the bike in the SX, and it had it was kickstart. I think it was kickstart only, but it was counterbalanced, if I'm remembering correctly. And you just noticed there was so much less vibration. But as far as traction went, I don't know that there was a big difference. So, but the traction went up when we went to TPI, because they really mellowed out the power delivery. So in that essence, traction went up. But I think the traction is more of a factor of the kind of the power delivery at that point than where it's going. So. And Anthony Z says, also, some people describe the Smart Carb as a similar traction to TBI. This is the truth. For me, personally, I don't like the Smart Carb or the Electron. This is me, because it is actually too smooth. And in the carb world, some of that throttle response, it depends on how it's jetted. But even when we played around with the fueling on those, because you're kind of adjusting the needle, you could get it to be fueled improperly, but it seemed like it was always very smooth. It didn't get that snap that, like when you sort of richen a regular carburetor. Sometimes you kind of richen them so they sort of bog and then snap, so they don't. Because if you lean them, they really bog, and sometimes they never come back. But when you richen them, sometimes they momentarily bog and then they snap, and it gives it that. And I never could get that with the. And I don't know whether it was the Smart Carb or the Electron. It was the one I actually played with quite a bit. So that's the thing there. So, and Chris B said, I finally had a pin spring go out in my Voyager Pro mount after 4 years. Are the pins on the new mount much better, or should I just try to get replacements? If you have the plastic mount, especially an older one, you absolutely will have that problem. I know they've done some improvements in this. The aluminum dock, the billet aluminum dock, is a little bit better. They improved up there. But I'll tell you the one thing that I've found, because I've had plenty of failures of the docks, and that's really the only failure I've had at the dock, is when you allow your unit to go dead, and then you try to charge it up on the bike. For some reason, it just gets really hot. If the power gets really low on the unit, and then you try to charge, but if it's really low and you charge it up in some place where it's sitting still, like I charge them off of a 12-volt battery, car battery that I have in my garage, and I just hook them up on a normal dock there, and there's no problems. But I think there's something to do with the movement and the contact of the pins when you're on a dirt bike, and it can cause that spring, the charging, behind the pin to fail. Also, not having much corrosion in there, but I've seen them before. The heat gets to them, and I've seen it actually warm up enough so that the plastic on the GPS unit starts melting and causing a little conductivity problems, and then the heat just starts exponentially getting weird. So, if you've had one go bad, contact Trail Tech and let them know. Just tell them that you had a problem with your dock and see where that goes. Okay. Mark Schneider. What was your favorite Quad Magazine camping trip? And what do you know about a fish bapping stick? Mark, that's insider information. I'd never give away my fishing spots, even though I don't fish. But we didn't have fishing poles. I don't know if we had fishing poles, but we got fish with some. I do have some quad stuff. And Mike Pearson says, I have the aluminum and it's nice. So I'm not really sure where that came from. Was I talking about? The aluminum dock. Understood. Sometimes you guys type so quickly in the chat that you leave out the important information. And like I say always, the reason I'm recording this is so I can remember it if I have to. When I hang up the phone on this show, I don't remember anything I've said all night long. And so reading some of this stuff is a little bit difficult. Sander Sandwiches asks, your number one favorite suspension of all time, whether it be a company or inserts. Favorite suspension of all time. What was the best? So currently, I'm really happy with almost all the stock suspension that comes on stock Yamahas and stock KTMs. And this is now the freaking world is, everybody wants to fight me and they're complaining. And the reason I'm saying this is because the stuff works really good for a wide range of people. I can hop on both of those two brands of bikes right now and not have really any complaints that I can't kind of adjust with the clickers. And so this is KTM EXCs and XCs lately. I've had really good luck with. I haven't ridden an SX in the last couple of years, so can't comment on those. But the XCs and the XCWs and EXCs that I've ridden, I've been really happy with for their intended use, for what that bike was designed for. And then the Yamahas, whether it be YZ, I take a YZ and for my speed at the motocross track, which is 50 expert, whatever that is, I can go do anything short of full-blown supercross. And then, on the right tracks, even when Glen Helen gets rough, I love the bike. I don't have to think about the suspension. On some other brands, I have to think about the suspension. I was actually pretty impressed with the new Kawasaki also, the 24 KX450. I thought that was actually pretty good. So the bikes are good, but like I've tried a lot of the different. So I had Kreft suspension; they're no longer around. I have a guy, George at ESP, who works on my suspension, who tunes it up. I actually just got a set of Del Saggio. I had Del Saggio inserts in a pair of forks that I finally picked up, and I need to go test those. I'm gonna hook up. I'm gonna try 3 or 4 different sets of suspension and hook up to a potentiometer, or a thing that's going to read what the suspension is doing. It's the data logger, and I'm dropping the name of the thing that I'm trying to remember out of my head. But anyways, we have a test on a dirt bike test, and I'm going to go test that out because I want to see some charts on some stuff that I'm feeling. So that's in my short term plans. But there's not really any, and this goes across the board. There's not really any one kind of suspension that's just the better than anything else, or it's like personal flavor suspension. Like it's like your choice of ice cream, or the kind of food you eat, or what you when you go to a buffet, like what you would put on your plate on your first run through the buffet. Like that's what you want for your suspension, but how do you get it? And so the manufacturer tries to give you like pizza or tacos because everybody likes those, right? And you might want you to say, hey, I want soft shell only tacos. Okay, so you eliminate half the taco variety. This is what's going on with suspension, where you're getting more specific. If you're talking about companies, like like Honda kind of has a suspension philosophy, I'll call it. It's different than the Yamaha suspension philosophy, and by philosophy I mean kind of the end result feel that you get out of it. And they all have different ways. KTM has a certain feel, and the Husky has a certain feel, and the Gas has a certain feel. They're all three, even though they're kind of the same platform, a little bit different in the the similar model. So yeah, I don't know what's best. When I say I like stock suspension, it's because it works really good for such a wide range. And if we go back 10 years, there were some bikes that I had real issues with that are now way more apparent. And then there was some bikes that were really good. I'm amazed. I have a 2002 or 3, I think 2002 Husaberg 650. That suspension blew me away when I rode it. And I mean, when I rode it like 2 years ago, just for what it did, it would get raked over the coals right now for how long of stroke it has and how much pitch there can be in certain situations. It's got a lot of travel, but there's some things that it did that were like, man, that's really cool. But there's other stuff that it did like, I don't know if that's good, because it can really pitch forward and back quite a bit. So you decide. When we go to like brands, I've had Bones at Pro Circuit do me suspension that he nailed the first time. I just talked to him a little bit and he nailed it. I've sent him stuff that I never did any testing with. A Suzuki RMX 250 was one of the bikes, and he's known as like a motocross guy, but he's really into off-road. Nailed it first time. I sent suspension for an off-road bike to Factory Connection one time, and they knew it was for an off-road bike, and they nailed it the first time too, which is really strange. I've sent it to other places. Let's say I've sent stuff or had stuff that went through companies like Race Tech, and I'm trying to think of a couple of the other ones that I'd sent them to that I had to send back, and I said, hey, this. And they were kind of sent there sort of, we'll call it like unsolicited. It was done for a test bike, and we've ridden a lot of test bikes that had the suspension done. And it's either you ride it and you say, oh, okay, that's not for me, that's not my setup, and maybe somebody else that rode the bike liked it. But there was other times where I kind of had to send it back. I said, that's not my flavor. You put onions in that taco, and I don't like onions. So that's my take on suspension. So hopefully that answers your question. which is the number one best feeling in your opinion? Best feeling. I mean, I've always liked PDS. There's something about just the way that I can get a PDS, even stock, but then I know how to tune it to get it to work. Especially if I'm going to go get it valved, I can make that stuff work really, really good. Even that Husaberg I was just talking about, it was actually, believe it or not, PDS. So yeah, I've always been a fan of that. But I mean, just like these days, out of the box, in the test reviews and stuff kind of confirm it. Is like people really seem to like the Yamahas, and people don't like the KTM's for the air fork, but I really like the air fork. So I'm all over the place. Don't ask me, right? Dan Parker has a question, similar suspension question. He has a 2021 Gas EC300. I'm adding the proper springs for my weight and considering having Enduro Engineering revalve for Michigan B-Class hair scrambles with some decent-sized jumps. Do you think the revalve is worth it, or work with the clickers first and see how bad it bottoms out on jumps? Okay, Dan, so I've said this millions of times and stuff. If you've ridden and the bike's broken in, put 7, 10, 15 hours on it and have the suspension serviced. So before you do anything else, and if you go to stiffer springs, have the springs put on and have the suspension serviced. Especially in the forks, if you go into brand new springs, like they're going to contaminate it a little. They're going to, the new springs tend to, sometimes leave a little bit of, residue and stuff in there. But so I always say start with fresh fluid. If you're going to springs that are substantially stiffer than stock, you will probably have to have the suspension revalved because the rebound is just not up to what the spring is going to do. So this is just something to kind of take into consideration. If you're going to heavier springs, you're going to have it revalved for the full sake of the rebound is going to probably be overpowered. But if you're going to, like, say, same thing if you're going to lighter springs, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. But I always say get it serviced, get it broken in, then ride it, and then get it the best you can with the clickers. And then when you send it in to your suspension guy, when it finally goes to the suspension guy, that'll give him an idea of where you're at, and it should match what he's thinking. And if he talks to you, you're talking to him, and they say, "Hey, I'm all the way out on the compression," or my rebound's in really far, and then I wanted more or something. They can kind of bring it back, or you say, "Hey, I went in so far on the rebound, it started affecting the compression. I didn't like what it was doing." So I always say, play around with the clickers and see what the damn clickers do to begin with. Maybe you're way up on the high-speed compression or something weird like this, and that'll kind of tell you the feeling you're trying to get, and it'll give them a better idea of what they're trying to work with. So, yeah, that's the take. So George says, I want to say the forks in the 24 XCW felt very good even when I lawn darted my head into the wash yesterday. Well, thanks, George. We also learned on the 24 KTM that the headlight, the plastic holding the headlight shell and the headlight itself is brittle because George can punch a hole in the ground with it and it breaks. So those are the questions going on. I'm going to run in right now. We're going to go in here and see who could possibly win this DDC sprocket. If you are in the chat right now, hopefully you're in here. Contestant number 1, Alan Cohn. If Alan happens to be in the chat, you could be the winner of the DDC sprocket from last show. So you got about a minute or two. And FYI, we play a drinking game during your show, says Sandor. 3 rules. Drink when Jimmy talks about being a magazine editor. Okay. 2, drinks when he dances around directly answering questions, and he takes a shot himself. Well, I'll start with the latter, Sandor. Hopefully you're going to survive this show, because I will too. Like I said, Ragosa dances around directly answering a question. DDC sprockets, huh? Says Korean Donahue, yeah. DDC Sprockets, Delaney Drive Components, our original sponsor of this show. DDCRacing.net is where you go for all of your sprocket needs. We like to say we like DDC. Oh, exactly. And somebody's going to be getting that in about 2 minutes. It's not going to be Alan Cohn. So, cheers. Next up on the agenda. Oh, we have questions. I have some good questions tonight. Don't forget to go to Jimmy Lewis Off-Road. Hey, we have some openings in our February class and also our April class. And if you're a female, if you're a woman, we have ladies only March class taught by my beautiful wife, Heather. So I'm just going to stand around in my casual climb gear during that. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to stand around and be the useless husband at that class. So check out jimmylewisoffroad.com for more information. And okay, so Alan has not made it. So our next amazing contestant is Dan Parker. Dan Parker, if you're out there in the internet's world, you could be owner of the Sprocket. I think that Dan watches the show on when it's uploaded to the YouTubes. Oh, Dan Parker is here. Dan Parker, you get the Sprocket. So I'm going to email me myself a note right now, reply, and you win. Completely random drawing way of doing the Sprocket thing. So you win a DDC Sprocket. Thanks again to DDC. That's good. We got that contest out of the way, and now we're into the questions. Oh boy, what happened to my notes here? I'll get to have a really good idea to help you improve your show a little bit later. And the Tech Talk Taco Tuesday T-shirts, by the way. Like I said, coming on Friday. And don't go to any fake climb websites. This is another public service announcement. I guess they've gotten a lot of those things taken down. But if you see, Climb has some really good closeout deals going on, and you can just go to their website, go to climb.com, and they have a section that's like closeouts. That's where all that stuff is at. If you see something that looks too good to be true, it probably is. So don't do that. So we're talking about the Honda Transalp, which I was riding. I ran into a guy on a brand new Transalp who rode it in the dirt with no skid plate, which scared me. But then he also liked the user map set like rain mode, and I'm like, whoa. So Dork in the Road says, so many haters in the comments for this bike, but every review I see pretty much the same. It's great if you use it for what it was designed for. Great review, Jimmy. So I'm glad someone called Dork tells me I did a great review. This is always important to me. Bone Daddy 4560 says, I wish Honda would bring the AT back to the US market. The TA might be what I get instead. So I'm a little confused because I thought AT standard for Africa Twin, and I'm pretty sure there's Africa Twins in the United States. So this is what you get on YouTube. But AT might mean something else. And Marty Thompson says, I rode both this, meaning the Honda Transalp, and the Tenere. I bought this. He says it's way better balanced, not top heavy. Okay, I disagree with the not top heavy. I don't think it's better balanced. I think it's similar. Very easy to ride. That's an interesting thing because with all the traction controls, I find it hard to ride. I took it on a 200 km enduro loop last weekend. Okay, 200 kms. That means not from the United States. Might be Canadian. And by the way, I'm still apologizing to all the Canadians I offended on the last show. Speaking of that, there have been a few Tech Talk Taco Tuesday T-shirts export it up to Canada for some of your consumption. Let me know if I promised you one in one way, shape, or form, and I can get it to you. Anyways, 4 bikes in the group. I sat on the back wheel of the leader on a KTM 500 EXC all day on his Transalp. It's way more capable than people make out. Ride one before you dismiss it. And this is coming from someone who has never really understood why people like Honda so much. Okay. I don't think you went on an Enduroloop on that bike and kept up with the KTM 500 unless it was your grandpa on the KTM 500. Okay? That's what I think. So, and I know why people like Honda so much. Because you meet the nicest people on a Honda. And you're probably a nice guy. And you were trying to hound this poor old man on a KTM 500 and picking on him when you really shouldn't. But that's what you did. Jack 4668 on my Tenere vlog video where I give my suspension settings says, what does the acronym JL mean? Hold on. Oh, yeah, you really need to know. What is the acronym JL? Do you really want me to say my name more? Really? MX Racing Gun Unlimited Ltd says, where is a good place to buy a KTM Freeride EXC for a good deal? I listened to the podcast, and you mentioned earlier you were going to talk about it, but I guess I missed it. Great videos, thanks. So a while back, I don't know if it's still current, but KTM was having really good deals on they were basically having closeouts on the Freeride E. So I would go start with a KTM dealer. I mean, these days you can do an online search and, start poking around and checking out where dealers are, if dealers are dealing on those things and stuff like that. But there was some incentives, I know, and things going on. So I don't know what video that was, but that's what I heard. I think I said that on the show the last time I heard about it, but we'll see. Otis Flint says, a friend has one, meaning the KTM Freeride. It makes a rough 25-mile loop we have, but just barely. It usually is in limp mode or close when getting back to the truck. He loves it, but he also has a gas bike so he can switch when the Freeride isn't up to the task. And on that subject, I'm, so 25 miles, they're riding it pretty hard if they're getting it to go out. I could easily get 25 miles, but when I went out and really tried to hammer the battery dead, I could run it hard for about 25, and then it would, like he says, like limp mode. It kind of depended on the temperature, outside. And sometimes you still had another 5 or 6 miles easy, and other times at 25 it would start slowing down, but I wouldn't call it limp mode. It took a long time to get it into, quote, limp mode, and you're not really supposed to do that because you're draining the battery super, super low. So, kind of think about that when you're out there riding your electric bike. It's important, and there we go. So. Awesome name, Dork in the Road. Yeah, rad. Dork in the Road is the man. And so he has a good. I met him at the. I didn't actually meet him. I listened to him talk at the Tour Tech rally. What about KM for learning road books or Baja? KM. What does KM mean? Yeah. Do you want to know what the acronym means? So, go where it's snowing to buy a cheap bike. Okay, that's a good idea, Troy. It's probably even better to buy a cheap electric bike where it's snowing. I'm thinking, especially after all of the pictures of the Teslas popping up at the charging stations, because the charging stations weren't working very well. But okay, So I'm checking to see. Hey, Mike Pearson says my Climb Arsenal pack is the best. I agree. Climb is sponsor of this show. So when I'm wearing my Climb Arsenal vest, I'm usually riding a Yamaha WR450, which I rode the other day and had a really great rip around the desert. We did some nice sand washes. Good fun. We did the ride after the Hot Shoe Hall of Fame ride. So it was very lightly attended. I think people were a little tired to get up. And Sanders Sandwiches says, what did you used to do for a living? That's me. What did I used to do? I still do what I do for a living. I ride dirt bikes for a living. I've ridden dirt bikes for a living, and I've always done something else while I was riding the dirt bikes for a living. But the primary source of income in my life has been riding dirt bikes. Still is, somehow. I don't know where it is. So checking in with everybody out there. Thanks for the questions. I thought Sprockets was a German TV show. Is it? I don't watch German TV. I can barely watch American TV. And they say I only dance when the wife asks him a question. Neither of those is true. Don't really dance that much either. So I'm going to go into this question here. Should I wear goggles when I wear this? Anyway, so this is from Bill, and Bill kindly wrote me a nice letter, and he says, I have a really good idea to help you improve your show, with a lot of explanation points. And he says, you are now competing with Dirt Bike TV on your podcasts. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'll tell you why in a minute. If I may put it politely, exclamation points. Jay gets right into the question and answers them in a much more direct and concise way. I haven't watched that. I've seen clips of it. I might agree with that, and I'll tell you why in a minute. There is no drinking. Ooh, and let's just say rambling side bullshit to the answers. Okay. I like to call that entertainment, but anyways, his podcasts are much shorter than yours, and the first 20 minutes are not lost to goofy stuff. Well, his is not a live show, I don't think, and he probably hires a professional because he has sponsors, a lot of sponsors, and that's why his answers are more direct, because he can go straight to sponsor. Unlike me, who I'm sponsored, I have partners, Yamaha, Taco Moto, Scott Sports, Climb, DDC, Trail Tech, Fasst Company, Bulletproof Designs, and Double Take Mirrors. You can watch them scrolling up on the screen over my shoulder when there's not a rad picture that I put up there of myself riding a motorcycle where I make a living. Anyways, I thought you'd like to know. We are busy people, and we do not have a lot to do other than how the Valley of the Dirt people are doing. Oh, to know. Okay. Yeah, you didn't say that, but I'll just, to know how the Valley of the Dirt people are doing. Not to say that we don't like a little small talk here and there. And yes, I do have a few drinks now and then myself and let my hair down for a few laughs. Oh, you'd be so lucky to let your hair down. You did have to throw that in there at me. I just thought you would like to know from a viewer like me. Yeah, I actually do like to know. I sent him a letter back, and I said I did appreciate his thing. I do believe you are probably this is where he starts buttering it up. I do believe you are probably a much better rider than Jay and have a lot to offer when it comes to your riding classes. Keep up the good thoughts and have excellent content to your shows, but please get down to business and still hold your joy of motorcycle tech and your riding experience. You want to say hold on to your joy. I'm going to hold on to my joy here in a second. It was right behind the stage. Not that I like drinking that much, but I just, these letters really bring it to me. I'd like start crying, but I'd rather have a sip of beer right now. This is where I need a co-host, because I really want to talk, but I'm really thirsty. You will go a long ways with more busier people like myself. Bill, thank you. He says, thanks, Bill. And Mike Parsons comments, let's say, I like Jimmy's show better for some of the stories. Everyone is different and like different things. I agree. So, hold on. I'm going to agree with myself. Yeah, I doubled up on that one. So, even back in the day when I was working at the magazines, when I was at Dirt Rider, I was really very keen to understand that as much as people use that as a reference for getting good, solid information, they also need to be entertained. Because if it was written like a lab manual or a white sheet, nobody would buy it. Some people looked at it just for the pictures. I know why some people didn't like that magazine, and they like Transworld, or they like Motocross Action, or they like something else. Like, you get Transworld and you get girls in front of the motorcycle, or maybe next to it, or whatever. And I don't like mixing those two things personally. Like, looking at girls and motorcycles, I like looking at them for different reasons. So I separate it. So that wasn't my tack. I saw the craft behind some of the other editors, what they did. The way Jody at Motocross Action would purposely pick the bike that everybody else was going to drool over as the worst, and then say we told you, we're the only ones going to tell you the way it really was, and then the next month tell you how to fix it. There was the just wham bam, thank you ma'am, dirt bike magazine approach of just get it done with as many small words and as quickly as possible, and didn't go into so much detail. So I just found a place where I kind of fit, but I always remembered there was a certain amount of entertainment. It had to be enjoyable. My column would kind of tell you what was going on, but maybe tell a story and maybe a joke, or it might be funny in some way, shape, or form. I actually talked to a guy today who reminded me of a story I told about my hands that are they're shaped like action figure hands that are supposed to hold on to things. Mine hold on to grips and beers, as you'll notice. It's magical, kind of. But so this is the way I treat this podcast. And I've talked to a couple of my friends, when I bring some of this stuff up, I'm like, hey, do you think we should make it shorter or whatever? And they're like, don't change. And I know they're saying that because they're my friends, and they know that I will disown them and never let them hang out with me, which is probably like that's really what they want me to do, but they don't. And I won't let them ride my motorcycles that I have, so that's probably why they're my friends. And so I'm going to kind of keep doing this the way I've been doing it, and try to keep a little bit of entertainment in there. So I think, and so some comments. I'm going to go ahead and read. Sandra says, hopefully this is a full beat around the bush question answering session, so you can have that. And look, I'll just have one for you too, so you have to have two. But it's like people like kind of the different things. Let's see. It says, Jay's an okay guy, but he is pretty bland and sucks a lot of, and then it says blank, blank, blank. No, Jay's a great guy. He has created a really cool. That's why I had him on the show. He still owes me his worst of picks. He won't do it because it's somebody. It's just like anything that's taken out of context. He could say something bad about something, and it might be a personal thing or whatever, and then like 7 years later, there might be a really good opportunity to work with that company, and they're like, well, 7 years ago, you said that the this, whatever it is, that if it isn't a Wiseco, Pro X, Dunlop, all of his things, he does pimp his stuff, and that's what he's supposed to. That's what he has to do. So that's the way it kind of works. And Dave Burgess says we like goofy stuff. Yeah, I don't want to call it goofy. Jim Jarvis says Dirt Bike TV, aka Pimp My Ride. We never had an aftermarket bike part he didn't love. It was like they were called Jay Clark bikes. The bikes that Jay would build with all of his sponsor stuff would just do the rounds at the magazines, and I've ridden a bunch of them, and they were exactly that. It was just a lot of stuff. It was a product showcase. It's just like these people that do bike builds, these influencers that do bike builds and list all the parts down on their bottom under an affiliate link. They get all the stuff for free. They hope you click on it. They get a little thing back, and they get a lot of free stuff, and usually they just go and sell the bike. So it's, I can tell you how this business works and how it breaks down. And as soon as I write my book, which I've been talking about for 4 years now, because that's how long I've been doing this podcast. 4 years, jeez, 218 episodes. If at 50 a year, that's about 4 years. I need to go back to a Mexican restaurant. So I need to figure out how to make this less complicated. We're still running in the red on the thing. So if the stuff's buffering, I'm blaming the computers. So let's see. I like Jimmy's show better for some of the stories. Well, of course you do. That's why you're listening right now. Everyone is different and likes different things. It's like sitting around a campfire, says Craig Alberts, after a long day of riding with Jimmy and friends. Perfect. That is the atmosphere that I'm sort of trying to create here. I honestly, we do have sponsors. They do help kind of support us, but they barely pay for the bandwidth of all the stuff we're putting out. And in reality, I've gotten so much from dirt bikes. I mean, like I told the guy earlier, I ride dirt bikes for a living. I want to continue to do that. And this is sort of my penance. I think I've sinned by riding so much dirt bikes and had so much good times with it that I have to give something back. And I know how much you wouldn't even be listening to this if you didn't like riding dirt bikes. You want to be able to go riding all the time, and that's what's cool. And that guy must be fun to ride with. Which guy? You probably should go riding with Jay, because he has all the trick bikes with all the cool parts on it. I got to get him back on the show. Actually, I should get him back on the show, and then we could talk about whose show is better. That's what I would do. Yeah, and Dan likes listening to the podcast because it keeps my attention and helps me focus. You got to be kidding me. You know what I need to do? I need to do a podcast while I'm driving, because that's about the only time I'm actually focused. Like, what is it with people driving and talking into their phone, like posting on things? Every once in a while I see these kind of things. So Jason Knapp, I tune in for Jimmy and Jimmy things. Oh, good. This is called Jimmy Rider. I enjoy the entertaining stories, useful information, and the for sale section in Rooster Endo. Yes, that's Rooster Endo, or for sale sometimes. I forgot to ask if the couple of last people. I know Trevor sold his bicycle that he put on there. And Dave says he's not my friend, so don't change. Let's see. No, Mike, I'm not going to. I've always been myself. I don't want to conform to anybody else's standards, but I need content, so I read people's letters on the air. Let's get to the net. Gronk VBS just got here. Better late than never. You Canadians, man. It probably snowed and made the power go out underground in your cellars. This is another letter I got. Dear blank. Oh, that must be to me. Do you want your business to reach your audience through Google positive reviews and nice comments and get more customers organically? ? Then I can help with that. Why should you actually choose Google positive review? What are its benefits? And then there's some emojis and stuff. Whether it's Google, Yelp, industry-specific platforms, I can strangely place positive reviews where they matter most, maximizing your online presence. I tell you where I like to have my reviews placed. Yeah, it's not online. Let's see. Identify key platforms for positive reviews that align with your target audience. I'm speaking to my target audience right now, amazingly. Craft and conform authentic and compelling reviews tailored to each platform's audience. Thank you for your considering my proposal. I'm excited the opportunity to enhance your business reputation and drive positive growth. You need to send Bill a letter and tell him that I'm doing it my way. Please contact me without any hesitation. I'm always ready for you. Best regards, Mossambarish Haikum. Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't want to engage with Massambar Aish. Can you guys all leave positive reviews for me someplace? So I don't have to have this guy, because evidently if I don't have this guy, my business is going to fail. He had pictures of me on my podcast. He was using the pictures to show me how he was going to make more positive reviews. So if you want to do that, that would be much appreciated. I'm not begging. Actually, be careful, because the Google, the YouTube's asked me if I wanted to start a member subscription page. So just be careful. Let's see. Kieran says, who have you not had on your show that you absolutely need to get on the show? Let's see. Who do I want to get on the show? I actually want to get Bones from Pro Circuit Suspension on the show, because we have a lot of history, and he's a real interesting guy. He's kind of retired now. He goes fishing a lot, but he'd be one of the guys I want to get on. I've talked to a whole bunch of people about it, but it's difficult to get him. I want to get Jason Abbott on the show. That guy. We'll talk about motorcycle media and editors and what it's like working for manufacturers and all the tricks they have. Who else would like to get on the show? I don't know. Got to get Ricky back on the show. That Brabeck kid, the guy that won the Dakar. Remember that? It was like a couple weeks ago. Everybody already forgot. So got to get that guy back on the show. And yeah, don't change anything. Add some new tech parts or parts that are popping up in the industry to stir up the comments. I did that. I made a note to myself to talk about, what did I make a note on? There was some new, maybe it was in one of the questions. France Harkener 9821 says, do you even use the clutch lever for anything? Maybe just for stopping and takeoff. And he's asking about a recluse clutch. And it's like, no, you don't have to use the clutch at all, but you can, and not just for starting and stopping. So that's the thing. What was the new tech part that I saw? Oh, I was talking today. There's some new ECU tuning tools that are popping up out there, and I finally talked to someone that was working with one, and his guy was really sharp, and when he was listening to me talk, he was like, finally, he said this. He said, finally, someone who actually gets it. So I said my thing, like, if you want more power, turn the throttle farther, and a couple other things, just dealing with traction and rideability and how fueling and ignition works, and yeah, it was good. I'm excited to possibly start doing some stuff with this guys. So that would be really cool if that works out. Doug P 2769 says, Yamaha, my favorite brand, and never had a bad one. I would never buy this bike though. 2-strokes are best for dirt and to repair. Okay, glad you're looking at. He's talking about the Yamaha WR video, and I'm glad you're looking at bikes based on they're better to repair. It's like, how much do we really have to work on bikes? And I'll get to that in a minute too. Well, Dave Lerner says, a question regarding gearing and chain slap. And this is something I pulled off of the EXC and Performance Tech group there. When I changed from a stock 1448 to 1450, I noticed a significant increase in chain slap noise. Now I'm planning on going a tad lower. I saw somewhere that the larger rear sprockets are more prone to chain slap, and I'm thinking of going 1348. So can anyone confirm that? So on a KTM from 1448 to 1450, it depends on the chain and where it's at, like where it's set up, but usually you can just flip the chain blocks around switch the sprocket, and you shouldn't have to do any adjustment at all. So I'm hoping that he flipped the chain blocks around and didn't do any adjustment, and it worked. But I have not found that going to larger chain, a larger sprocket in the rear made the chain slap any more or less, for instance. In fact, I would think that it would be more on the smaller sprocket because it's the bigger sprocket would tend to want to hold it a little bit higher, not much, but a little bit higher. And it kind of depends on where that chain slap is coming from, whether it's on the top side, which it usually is, and then kind of, maybe when you're going to the 1450, it could be anything. When you're going, Sander, dancing around the question answer, please. When you're going to these, because sometimes I think about these things as you're doing it, when you're going to it, it's changing the gearing, and maybe you're more in between gears, and it allows the more chain slap because of where you're riding it, on and off throttle, on and off power a little bit more. So, and then, it really, is it slapping on the upper chain guide, where it used to be a roller, or is it slapping on the lower one down at the bottom? That's kind of across that frame rail. So it really depends on where that noise is coming from. I will tell you straight up that different chain guides and chain blocks make different noises, and some of them are designed to be soft and quiet because they need to pass sound standards, and some of them are designed to last a real long time, and they tend to be harder plastic, so you hear the chain kind of slapping around on that. And going to a 1348, I think that's actually going to make it. I would think it would make it worse because with that smaller countershaft sprocket, it's gonna also put the chain down lower onto the, kind of onto the swing arm, and that is kind of a problem when you run like 12. I used to run a 12 tooth on some of my KTMs for really gnarly stuff, and that would actually wear right through the chain guide. The upper wear pad pretty quick, and it wasn't really that good on the chain either. It was a little too tiny. But yeah, when you go down to the 13 to go to the one smaller, it's less. And I was just riding a KTM 500 with a 15 tooth countershaft sprocket on it, and I have on that bike, I believe I have TM Design Works, which are some of the harder things, and I didn't really notice any big difference going from, a 14 to a 15 or a 13 on what I have in some of my other bikes. I haven't noticed a difference in chain slap. So I wonder if you adjusted your chain differently. That's what I would get back to that's what I would get back to on things. So into the chat. If you wonder how you can ask questions on this, you can comment on the video. We get back to all of our comments on the show, so we don't always answer them in the comment section, but we always cut them and bring them back and answer them on the show. You can join in the show live, ask your questions in the chat. We most of the time get to all those when it doesn't get too crazy inside of here. And of course, you can send us an email. It's pretty easy. It's my name at DirtBikeTest, and we will add those into the show mix as well. I'm pretty sure we're going to do a Rooster Endo next time. I'm still talking with Taco Mike to have the big Rooster Endo show that we've been talking about, but I haven't got that totally put together. And next week, you know what? I know what I was going to tell you about all the new techs and gadgets. I'm going to the AIM Expo show, and that's where they're going to show us all that new stuff. So I will have that information. Next Tuesday is the first night of the show, so I might postpone the show till Wednesday so I can bring some of that information back to you, or maybe I get bored and I rush home because I can't. I'm too excited to tell everybody, and I'll do Tech Talk Taco Tuesday on Tuesday. So, yeah, I'm getting Jason Abbott in here, do a ride and a show. Hey, and if you want to be the co-host here on this amazing show and sit in this amazing seat, I'll sell me on it. Sell me on you coming in to be a co-host in the show. Let's see how you can do at hosting a live podcast where we have problems with audio and button pushing and things like that. And I'll probably push your buttons too. Yeah, I have a finger that I use to check my chain tension. I just push up on I literally, on my KTMs, if I'm running kind of a near standard gearing, if my swing arm is unweighted, I push up on the chain to the back of the bottom chain guide, and then I try to roll. This is what I do. I try to roll the chain over the end of that thing and make it touch the swing arm, and I want it to just barely not touch the swing arm. If you can kind of visualize what I'm talking about. So you think about, you're running your finger along the chain to the back of the bottom of the chain guide, and then you push it up, and I've done this on quite a few different bikes, and it seems like right before the chain touches the aluminum part of the swing arm, the top is so tight that it's good. If it goes up and it touches, it's too loose, and if you get there and there's like a 1/16 or a half an inch before or a quarter inch before it gets there, maybe it's too tight. And the way you can check this is, the next time you have your shock off with your chain still intact, run your chain, get your swing arm perfectly straight. So it's not it's in the swing arc, it's perfectly parallel. So your swing arm pivot, your center of your counter shaft, and your rear sprocket are essentially in line. And that's when that's when the chain will be at its tightest, and you can kind of check that there, and then compare that, if it's not tight, compare that to when it's at the regular extension, and then you can kind of do some math on your own and figure it out. Best thing to do it exactly like they tell you to do it in the manual, if you have time and you want to be that concise about that. So Bill O'Neill says, it could be a rookie rider with 20-year-old knowledge, also a mechanic. I could be a rookie rider with 20-year-old knowledge, also a mechanic. Oh, you could be a host on the show. Let's see. Hey, Jimmy, Gronk VBS says, have you seen the buzz on the Cove Rally 800 as opposed to the ADV model? 360 pounds with 1 gallon of fuel, 5-gallon tank, so still under 400 pounds full. It'll be at the AIM Expo. Check it out. If it's at the AIM Expo, I will check it out. I will do that for you. I'll get the scoop, the inside scoop. I got the inside scoop on the Cove last time because a bunch of people I know, they all work for manufacturers, are standing around. They're like, hey, Jimmy, go look and see what that thing is. It looks like a copy of a KTM. So that was the first time I actually saw one in person, was last year at the AIM Expo. So, okay. I have a couple stories to tell, and then I'm probably going to sign off and run a little bit long for a solo show. I'm not going to take a break. Actually, I should take a break. I'm going to take a quick little commercial break right now just for a few seconds.
The defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. What is the Taco Touch? It's the best service in the industry. Virtually 24/7 tech support via email or text, and it's like having a dirt bike doctor on call every day of the year, helping you fix your bike or recommend parts or setups for you. If you've ever received an order from us, you know that the Taco Touch extends to our fulfillment, and our orders come with the coolest stickers that you've ever had, buying parts from anybody before, and a handful of root beer barrel candies. All of our Taco Moto Co. branded components come with a no questions asked lifetime warranty, and we'll even extend out the warranty of other manufacturers, OEM, and aftermarket parts where we can, sometimes for life. We test and tune endlessly and exhaustively and obsessively. We're trying to destroy everything that we can before you get your hands on it to look for weaknesses and to improve it, or to make recommendations to the manufacturer. And if it's something that doesn't meet grade, then we don't offer it on the store. Everything that we carry is something that we have personally used, tested, and ridden, and raced, and knows meets the high Taco Touch demanding standard. Go out and get some adventure.
And we are back. Thanks for watching my sponsors. Sponsors are good. They're these companies are people that I support, trust, known for a long time. I use their products. I like them. And Ron Wilder says, Wielder, any updates on the t-shirts? You're going to have to go back about an hour and 10 minutes, and we'll have updates. But yeah, I'm going to ship them out on Friday or Thursday or Friday. No, I'm going to get them on Friday, and I'm going to try to ship them out by Monday, I hope. But yes, that's an update on the t-shirts. Would you like to see the t-shirt? I'll put it up on the screen here. Look, I look good in that t-shirt, don't I? It's almost as good as the Climb flannel that I'm wearing, which is much nicer. But you're going to have a Tech Talk Taco Tuesday t-shirt heading your way as soon as possible, because everybody thinks that I'm just taking your money and running, which is what I really should do, but I'm not gonna. I'm just got to get out of the merch business because I'm not very good at it. So thanks everybody. Have I ridden the Harley adventure bike? Yes, I have, Frank. I don't know about the new one. I rode the one that was new a few years ago. So yeah, I've ridden it. It's a beast. It's a good adventure bike. It should be pretty. I mean, I don't know what the Harley electric bikes are, so I would try to check it out. I need to ride a few more of these kind of like these electric bikes that are kind of popping up. I really still want to ride a Stark. They're just, they're sold out. They're selling everyone they can. They don't need any more press, period, let alone somebody that they feel hates electric bikes, which isn't me, but people seem to feel this. And then, Ron's got 7. 7 t-shirts. Yeah, he sent me some money. I tried to go to Mexico and hide, but it didn't work. I came back. They let me back in the country. It was pretty amazing. So, okay. So here's my story. Some of my KTM things, interesting things that I had happen. So when I start having a problem with a bike, different problems with the bikes, I have a system for, okay, the first thing I always ask myself, the first thing is, what did you do to it last? Like, what caused this problem? It's not, they rarely just sort of break. So when we were down in Mexico, the first problem we had, interestingly enough, was on, I believe it was a 2018 Husky 501 that Mike was riding. We pulled up, and I'm looking at his gas tank because I'm always checking to see how much gas we have, and he had a slightly smaller tank than me, and I actually was carrying an extra gallon that I dump into my bike as soon as I could. And I looked over at his bike, and it looks like the gas is foaming. And I'm looking, and his bike's running fine. He doesn't say anything. I'm like, hey, Mike, I think you got a split fuel line, or your fuel pump is, or fuel filter or something is cracked. And so he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I go, how's it running? He goes, it's running fine. So we rode for another 50, 60 miles, and it got lower. It got low enough to where now you can kind of see it spraying up out of the, where the fuel pump was is actually spraying the side of the tank. I'm, oh, yeah, that's what it is. So we ended up, opening the gas cap, and you could look down in the tank, and you could see where it was just starting to, out of the seam of the fuel filter, it was spraying gas. And so this was, it was like, okay, this could go bad at any moment, but it probably been doing it for a long time. We don't know. And it was his bike was running fine. So we got back, and luckily I actually was carrying around a Taco Moto, metal fuel filter, one of the ones that Taco Mike, that's tacomoto.co sells. I had that, but I threw the clips in there that hold it, and I actually got ones were too big. And lucky Mike in his little spare toolkit parts, he didn't even know he had it, but he had a fuel filter kit from KTM, and with the right size clips. So between, we put the good fuel filter inside there, and we got the clips. We did this the next morning. We rode another 50 or 60 miles before we even, and the bike ran fine, but it was just getting time to fill. But this and it was a made in Turkey fuel filter, by the way. So if you know, and the ones that you say made in Austria seem to never fail. The ones that say made in Turkey have a little bit shorter of a shelf life, but this bike has 300 and something hours on it, more than that. I think he was saying 340 or something was where his hour meter was claiming the bike was at. But yeah, so we popped it out, popped in a new filter, and we're on our merry ways. But and that's just kind of a known thing that happens. And people go, well, aren't you worried about it? Yeah, I was carrying one. So I'm not really worried about it, but I did have the solution had I needed it. It would have been a little rough if we had to change it out in the field, because I didn't have the right hose clamps. So we could have used zip ties. I'm pretty sure we could have popped it apart and used zip ties to kind of get the new filter on, but I don't know how they would withstand the pressure. It'd be interesting to see, but we ended up getting the right clips, and everything was all good. So the next thing that interestingly happened is I have a KTM 500 that had a tick, and so here's the sources of KTMs and Huskies and whatever. And when we start talking about noises and ticks, I always talk to, I talk to Taco Mike every once in a while and ask him about just different things. And I talk to Chris Blaze, who has a lot of experience on these things. And so I talk to a lot of guys because you talk to the guys at KTM and they don't have, my contacts down there, they don't have experience with 200 and 400 and 500 and 700 hour motorcycles. That's just not their wheelhouse. They deal with things when they're new, and they're kind of in their cycle for a year or two. They hear about issues if there are issues reported by customers, but other than that, it's they're sold and gone. They're working on what's coming next and what the new thing is. So you have to talk to guys that work on them all the time. So I do try to talk to guys like this all the time. So I have this KTM 500 that has a tick, and I posted about it about 2 years ago, and it was a bike that I got from somebody else, so it wasn't my bike, so I don't know the original history of it. And because I have a few of these things, it kind of got lost in the mix, got shuffled around. And the tick kind of went away, but I think I started paying attention to the wrong bike. And so finally I put a sticker on it and said, okay, this is the one with the tick. And so now I know which one it is. And I can't figure it out, because I'm like, well, this one I rebuilt the head on one bike, and another bike I put a top end in. And neither of those bikes, the sounds didn't really change. The one that had the really bad tick was the one I had to rebuild the head on, because the valve keepers wore out and it dropped a valve. That tick was really bad. But the kind of ticky one, I'm going, oh boy, what is it? And I know, and I checked the valves on the tick bike, and the valves were all in spec. And then I'm like, okay, it's it's the clutch dampers, because the where the noise comes from on KTM 500s is after 50 hours on the clutch dampers, it's going to tick, and it's going to sound like a cam chain tick. And then the other tick that they make is when the piston gets really starts getting a little bit sloppy, it will make a tick. And then, of course, you can have loose valves tick, which is if everything's working perfect on that particular cylinder head, is pretty rare. But okay, there's that tick. and I checked all these things, and then there's the kind of the cam chain tick, and I was like listening around with the screwdriver. You know, you put the screwdriver kind of on the bone below your ear, and you place the metal on the motor in different spots, and you can move it just like an inch, and you'll get a little bit of different sound, and a little bit different sound, and you can, you know, move it around. And so I was chasing this sound around, and I mean, I couldn't figure out where, quote, the tick was coming from. So checked, you know, like I said, checked everything. And then upon really close inspection, so what I did was I actually pulled the cam chain tensioner out, thinking that, okay, I'm going to check to see if the cam chain is worn. And you can usually tell by how far it's extended. And, you know, when you take it out, the spring pushes it out. But you can also pull the bolt off the back, take the spring out, and then pull the cam chain tensioner out. And then there's no tension on it, so it comes out. But there's usually, you know, some we'll call it like a little bit of residue on it, so you can kind of see where it's been sitting. And then you can see how far extended it is. And it was still in the middle of the range. But the interesting thing on the bike with the tick is when I pulled that spring out with the washer on the back of it, there's a copper, you know, crush washer on the back of it. It was a thicker washer than standard, and so it was not allowing the full amount of spring pressure to go on that little cam chain tensioner, because it's got a spring on it, and it has a you know, kind of ratcheting cam, so it can only go out, not in. So the spring pressure, which isn't that much, but it pushes it onto the cam chain. And I noticed the washer on the back of it was a little bit thicker. I'm like, I'm going to change this. Tick, gone. So that little tiny bit of spring pressure was just enough to possibly get it to push it out maybe like one tick more on the cam adjustment, and, you know, allow it to quiet it down. So it had cam chain tension, but just not enough. And I don't know with, you know, whether when it heats up and cools down, how that affected it, but a lot of interesting. So, but the interesting, so when I talked about it, it was like, because I'm worried it was something bad. And so I went around and asked a lot of people about that particular motor, you know, just that the KTM 500 motor in general. Had anybody seen, and this is what I learned, had anybody seen any catastrophic failures of those motors that weren't caused by something stupid, running it low on oil, over revving it, sucking sand, the usual suspects, but just from just plain wear or tear? And like, nobody has seen that motor kind of like grenade. And in the process of like kind of diagnosing the tick and knowing it was one of these bikes, and I'm like, well, I guess I can keep it running because it's not going to be catastrophic. Because I'm sure there's other bikes with this same sort of a tick issue. So that's how. So I did a little research. If there had been stories of, you know, rods coming apart at 500 hours commonly, you know, that's how long they last, or if you let your piston wear out, it likes to turn sideways and then it blows a hole in the cylinder and wrecks your cylinder head, I wouldn't have been riding the bike. But I asked around, hey, do these things really fail? And I asked people that knew, that saw a lot of them, high mileage ones. Like, no, they don't really just grenade. Even with the high mileage, they grenade when you do something wrong, but any bike will. So that was my essentially, you know, kind of path to doing, you know, how long is this thing going to last? And then my last thing is the KTM fuel pumps, which, as you know, if you have a KTM, it has a, you know, fuel injected KTM, it has a fuel pump, it will last like 5 tanks of gas, right? And then they go bad. If you read the internet, they all go bad. If you get more than 30 miles from a place where you can get towed out, your fuel pump will go bad, right? Okay. Well, that's what I heard, but I've been chancing it. I don't carry around a fuel pump with me. I never intend to. The fuel filter was kind of a reach, and believe it or not, the ride in Mexico was the first time I've ever actually carried one on my person. Amazingly, we used it, but back at the truck, but I had it with me. So I had my very first ever KTM fuel pump failure. But here's how awesome that bike was. It waited until we got done with our last day of riding and our last miles. And when we pulled up to our chase truck that was there, we were going to load up at the chase truck. And I went to start the bike to load it in the back of the truck. Bike wouldn't start. Crank, 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 wouldn't start. Crank, 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 wouldn't start. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what could be wrong? Like, really, what could be wrong? And it was the end of the day. I was tired. Decided, I don't really want to mess with it or anything like that. So we just pushed it up in the truck instead of riding in the truck. I hate pushing things with motors in them. So bike's in the truck, loaded up, drove it home. Got home and I'm like, okay. I figure it'll start right up. I figured it was just something funky. Like maybe it was just water in the gas because we were really low on gas and it maybe, who knows? Nope. Just crank, 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 nothing. And even when I was there at the truck, I kind of like listened and I didn't hear the fuel pump cycle. It just didn't make I tapped the starter a couple times and listened to it. And so I'm like, maybe it just went bad. So then I go, okay, like what is it? What do we touch? Whatever. So checked, first thing, check the fuses. And so I go and, pull the fuses and they're all good. But then I push the starter and I hear it cycle. And so I look closely at the fuses and there's just the ever so slight amount of corrosion on the fuse blades. And then I would put a little bit of tension on the fuse box and it would stop. And it wouldn't cycle and start. And so it's just like, okay, what does this thing take to run? Power. Okay, sure. Power. Is it getting power? Well, I don't know. Let's check the fuses. It's just this where, what could be the problem? Wiggle the fuses. Oh, it comes back. So took them, cleaned them up, threw a little dielectric grease on there. There wasn't anything on it. Just kind of cleaned everything up, put it, bike works fine. So it's just this, and I kind of asked myself, like, hey, what was the last thing you did to it? And I did have the seat off before I left. And here's the other thing. So before I left, and the big long bolt that holds the seat on was not replaced. And I got lucky that my seat was there. So I actually had my seat zip tied on the whole time I was riding down in Mexico. It was just pushed down. And I bet you that seat bouncing up and down was tapping on the fuel on the fuse box, because it's moving around and kind of flexing in weird ways. And I'll bet you that thing tapped it. So it was, what did I do to it last? What was the problem that caused this? And so if you're ever working on one of your bikes and you're wondering what it is that went wrong, ask yourself, what did I do last? And what's causing this problem? Okay, bike doesn't start. It's fuel or spark 99% of the time. If nothing else has happened, it lost fuel and somehow it lost spark. And kind of figure it out. It's pretty easy to find out when there's no fuel, because if you crank it for a while, and especially if you're kind of opening the throttle and getting some where there should be fuel going in there and it's not going in, and the exhaust doesn't smell like gas, it's a fuel thing. If it's spark, you do all that stuff and you smell the exhaust, it smells like gas. So it's kind of easy, just 10-second method to figure out like what the problem is, and then ask yourself, okay, what would be causing kind of these issues, and you just go through this sort of flow chart of what you're trying to fix, what you're trying to get accomplished with your setup. So, yeah, those are the things that we go through and do. So that's how I fix my problems. My bikes are all working perfect. They're brand new. Anybody, if you want to buy an old KTM RFS, we don't have Rooster Endo, but I have that bike for sale. I have a couple 525. I have two 525s. I believe I have a 400, and I have a 250 that's been converted into a 350. It's actually probably a 320 or something. I don't remember. It was a Thumper Racing kit. So got those bikes for sale. Let's see. Willie Musgrave and Greg Zitterkoff will be at the AIM Expo, tells me Frank White. I used to race against those guys. I actually raced a Best in the Desert race with Greg Zitterkoff. Oh, speaking of racing, hold on. Hot Shoe Hall of Fame. I achieved this. If you notice, this says the Champion of Champions. So this means that I beat a whole bunch of old dudes in go-karts. So, and you should have seen my face. I had my race face on. This is why I don't race. I got a little too serious. I punted my way into the front. So, throw some T's in the chat, yo, to get the party started. So, yeah, hey, if you like Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, throw some T's in the chat. And, yeah, thanks to Gene. Hey, the Hot Shoe Hall of Fame was super fun. Hey, and another thing, they did a live webcast, and I'm not kidding. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday has better technical prowess than those professionals at that thing. So, yeah, throw some T's up in the chat for me. I'm the winner of the 2024 Hall of Fame Champion of Champions go-kart race. I did not have the fastest lap time, which that means I didn't win in my book, because I think lap times speak a lot. And Clay Dolman says, on the topic of the RFS, do your clutches go flat, lose hydraulic fluid after sitting for a while? While I replaced all the gaskets, and it seems an ongoing thing. The bike does sit for long. Period. So, though. I just read it as it came in. So, 4XTs. On the RFS, so interesting enough, one of the problems I had recently, I believe it was on another KTM 500, was the so no, if the RFSs, if the clutches on any KTM, if the clutch starts going losing hydraulic fluid, it's probably out of the seal down at the bottom, and it's the O-ring on the piston inside of there. There's Magura ones, and there's Brembo ones, and then there's a lot of Recluse ones, and they all seem to be a little susceptible, kind of depending on the fluid that's in there. Whether how good they are, but generally just replace that O-ring on the piston. And I don't know if they have. I'm pretty sure that someone like All Balls or something like that will sell a rebuild kit or something. But a lot of times when they do sit, I think they dry out, and then when they start moving again, it fractures the O-ring that acts as essentially the seal on that. So that could be a thing. Yeah, so there we go. They got 4 T's. Yeah. Hey, Mike, we gave you some shout-outs. We talked about your bikes, your broken bikes in Baja, and how I saved you. And by get the party started, do you mean that you should have been watching this show an hour and a half ago, where we dissected the whole show? We talked about how I could make it better, and I refused, as you would well expect. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining in. If you have any last-minute questions, get them up there. I know there's a little bit of a delay between when I say something and how long it takes to go out to you guys in the real world, but that gives me a perfect opportunity to once again thank my sponsors. Of course, Double Take Mirrors. If you want the best dual sport mirrors, or a great way to see how to shave your head when you're kind of cleaning up in the back like I do, Double Take Mirrors. Some of these sponsors, believe it or not, I do have discount codes for. So check me out, and I can give that. Throw more T's up in the thing. Of course, we have Bulletproof Designs. They usually sponsor our new product of the week segment, and I didn't really prep that much for the show. I tried to make the sound work, so I didn't do that. Fasst Company, they were our first product sponsor. They hooked up somebody with a brake clevis, and I think some other cool stuff, T-shirt and things like that. I'm going to get another product giveaway for our next show for sure. I'm actually going to try to get a lot of them coming up. Trail Tech, DDC gave away a sprocket on last show, which we gave away tonight. Good on you, Daniel Parker, for doing that. Hopefully you're listening to it on the podcast format. If you have friends that need to have questions answered, you can always send them my way. I have nothing better to do on my Tuesday night from 7 to 9 p.m., but then answer your motorcycle product-related questions. If you were hoping to get some quad advice on the show, I told you, keep your tire pressures low so you don't spill your beer. Climb, Scott Sports, Takamoto, and, of course, Yamaha. I wish I could go to the GNCC and ride the 125 that's coming up here. They're doing a press center for the new WR and FX, but I am going to be busy out here doing other stuff. And we have a couple other things. Hey, Jimmy, the CEV kill switches are prone to failure. CEV. The one on my Berg started acting up and will only work with the bars turned. Now it doesn't work at all. Asking before I start chasing water. The CEV. What is? I'm not familiar with that an acronym. So, yeah, no quad picks. Yeah, we'll put the quads up next time. Are the double take mirrors any better for vibration than El Cheapo mirrors that came with my 500? You have no idea how much better they are. They actually work. And I'm not just saying that, because they actually do work. They mount on ram balls, which have a little bit of vibration isolation, and you can see behind you. So, hey, we're congratulating. We got 100 messages tonight in the chat, which always helps things out. Again, throw the teas up to get this party started. If I can't get you to move your fat little finger and push buttons on a computer, I have failed. And hey, I'll catch all of you next week. Cheers. Tell Jay to have a beer for me, although he can't, over there at the dirt bike test. I'm going to do a produced show one of these times and blow him out of the water, because that's, wait, is competition good or bad? Are we all supposed to love each other? I don't know. Anyhow, Euro bikes used to come with CEV switches. I like how they are modular and compact, just not intuitive. So I don't, CEV switches are prone to dust and dirt and getting inside them. Okay, this is what I'm hearing. So thanks for the help on that, Gronk and others. So if it works when you turn the bars, and this is the thing, it depends on, like, what is it, a KTM version Husaberg, or is it a Husaberg? Because the Husabergs actually had horrible wiring, but at least the wires were big, were the KTMs. And if there is one weakness on the KTMs, it is the wiring. They really try to reduce weight with small wires, and over time, especially when you're running a lot of current through some of the wires, they can get a little bit brittle, and you can have a little bit of wire failures. I've had this happen on KTMs before, but yeah. So there are so many add-ons I would like to try, but not necessarily use. So, okay. And I think Bill just he put up a set of boobies on my thing. Okay. With that, we're going to have to kind of shut this show down. Again, thanks to you. Thanks to all the sponsors. And we will see you on the trail. Cheers, everybody.
If you liked what you saw in this video, come check us out over at dirtbiketest.com on the webs. We have bike tests, product tests, a lot of fresh dirt, and you can even support us by clicking through our links. Hopefully, we'll see you out in the trail.